All right, welcome back to olliegolf.com. I'm your host, David Agono, and today I have on Larry Penley. He is the University of Clemson's men's head golf coach. Now, I'm going to start off reading some of the achievements and accolades, and I think I'll just stop after a while because it gets kind of ridiculous. 31 years at Clemson as head coach, 21 top 20 seasons, 7 NCAA regionals. I mean, you're a former All-ACC golfer. Usually I start off, asking guys, how did you get into golf? Larry, I mean, first of all, how are you before we get into anything?
I'm real good, David. Glad to be with you.
Now, let's start off the way we normally start off. Why golf? How did you get the golf virus?
Well, I always wanted to play. The coaching kind of was an afterthought deal. I really always wanted to play. I went to Clemson. I played at Clemson. We had some good teams when I was here at Clemson. Clarence Rose, who won a couple times on tour, he was a teammate of mine here. Mike Carlisle, who's the coach at USC Aiken, has won 3 national championships, NCAA Division II. We had a good team, and I really thought I could play. And then after about 16, 18 months, I realized that was not going to happen. And my coach at Clemson, Bobby Robinson, was about to become the athletic director. And I was living in Homestead, Florida, playing on the Space Coast tour back in 81 and 82. And he called me and asked me if I wanted a job. He said he had to give up the golf team, and I thought about it for about 10 minutes and drove straight up 95 all the way to Clemson, and I've been here ever since. So I never really thought about coaching. It's just something that, it just kind of evolved. But golf has always been my passion and really always been my sport. It's always something that I really loved.
Now, I mean, obviously, golf has been your passion. Like, what are some of the aspects of golf that just have you? I mean, what are some of the parts of it where you've not found an equivalent in any other sport or business or whatever?
It's really all about you, and I don't mean that as in a selfish way, but it's it's such a mind controlling game. It's you, your clubs, and the golf course, and that's pretty much it. Obviously, all of your preparation leading to and all that, and trying to prepare for a tournament, but there's no teammates throwing you a block. Nobody has to pass you the ball. You're pretty much responsible for your own success, and I really always enjoyed that. I never always liked to practice by myself. I like to get off on my own and really get in some hard focused practice. And that's one of the things we try to teach our players to do today. It's not social hour out there. Let's get some work done. I always enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that. And I do love playing and having fun and, cutting up with my buddies. But that part of the game always really intrigued me. It always really made me appreciate golf. It always made me appreciate the subtle mental, avenues that always come up, and you're the only one in control. So that was always fun for me.
Yeah. Now you said that coaching was more of an afterthought. You kind of fell into your lap, which is not a bad thing at all. Well, you were an accomplished player. When you see guys, you coached for over 30 years. What are some of the things that you see in younger guys now that you're coaching that you saw in yourself, and how do you try to coach them? What are some of the things that you try to work out of them, maybe more times than not?
Yeah, I would really like to know, obviously what I know now back in the early 80s. I think I would have been a whole lot better player. Really the majority of that comes down to short game work. we're all enthralled about how we hit the golf ball, and we're always measured by how we hit the golf ball, you know, and it, you know, even my players, it's really hard breaking our players from that. You know, they're 18 to 21, you know, and they spend a lot of time on the range, and they spend a lot of time working on mechanics and working on fundamentals. That's great. But, you know, for every hour you spend on the practice tee, you need to spend 2 hours on your short game, and that's something I didn't learn later until I got my amateur status back and started having a family when I didn't have the luxury of practicing and playing really like I used to. And I'd go out with a sand wedge and a putter and get a lot of work done then, and lo and behold, you know, my amateur career actually turned out really good, winning a couple state AMs and a couple mid-AMs, and you know, it was all about kind of learning what to practice. And I think those are some of the things that I can try to teach my players.
Yeah. Now, we talked a little bit about your players. What do you look for in a player? Not necessarily when you're recruiting, but what are some of the characteristics of a player that you see or you hear about or that you actually do meet, and you're like, wow, that guy can make an impact for Clemson?
Yeah, well, you know, the first thing, you know, I think scores certainly get your attention, and it's two different kinds of scores. It's low scores, and then it's consistent scores. You know, so we really look at both of those. You know, if somebody shoots 66 or 65, it's certainly going to get my attention. But if somebody can go out there and put together a 54-hole or a 72-hole tournament and never shoot over 72, you know, he's going to be a great team player. So, you know, you kind of need both. But we certainly recruit fundamentals. I mean, I'm not the world's greatest guru as far as swing mechanics, and although I do have a pretty good eye for fundamentals, and I will make my job easier down the road if I recruit players with good fundamentals, meaning a very good grip, very good posture. Their swing playing doesn't vary much. And from there, you just go play golf. And there again, work on your short game and try to get your short game better. That aside, after we evaluate all those traits, I think the biggest thing really to me is attitude. And as soon as they can learn that they're in control of their destiny, it's not the teammates' fault, it's not their parents' fault, it's not their coach's fault. It's them. And it's all about their attitude. It's all about how they approach it. It's all about how hard they work, how hard they want it. You know, that's kind of harder to see through at times. But if you can get a bunch of kids with the right attitude, man, it sure does make your job easy.
Now, speaking of making your job easy, what's your approach as far as motivation or inspiration, or do you even believe in that? Is it just more so preparing them and then seeing what they got? Or, I mean, what's your take?
Yeah, if I have to do a lot of self-motivating, you know, I've done a poor job recruiting. You know, I really want guys to be very, very self-motivated, be very driven, you know, have daily goals, weekly goals, monthly goals, 5-year down the road goals, you know, and the kids that have that, you know, are really the kids that make it. The kids that come in with a plan and kind of have that plan already marked out, and they're just, I hate to say this, but they're using Clemson or using me as a stepping stone to get to their goals, that's okay. I really want that. I want to be that go-between, you know, between junior golf and college golf. You know, so I've never really been one to, you know, give a bunch of rah-rah, you know, before the last round speeches. You know, sometimes you need that. But mostly it's positive encouragement, you know, and, you know, stuff like, you need to get your head up. You know, we've still got golf to play. Let's go. You can do this. But as far as motivating guys daily, I really choose not to. They're either going to want to come out there and they're going to want to do it, I can't want it for them. You know, their parents can't want it for them. They've got to have an inner drive and want it themselves.
So let's say you have two different types of player. You have a player who is, let's just say he's slightly above average, and he wants to, or let's not say he wants to, but if he has the opportunity to play on the tour, whether it's web.com or PGA potentially, whether it's stateside or abroad. You have that guy, you have that player, and then you have a player who is a good player, but his head is more so in getting his degree, having fun, doing well, while he's on the team at Clemson, but he's probably going to focus more so on a let's just say a normal job, normal career, non-golf related, when he's done with his time at Clemson. How do you just mentioned how you want to be used as a stepping stone, per se, more so a facilitator. How would you approach those two different types of players?
Well, you actually just described my entire team. I've got probably 3 or 4 guys maybe right now that really have a goal of being a professional golfer. And then the other 5 or 6 are really good players, really good talents, and really good college players, but they realize that the chance of them making it on tour is slim, and they're not going to waste their college experience, and that's okay. I don't have any problems with that. Actually, our national championship team in 2003, I've only got 2 out of those 5 guys still playing competitive golf, and that's DJ Trahan and Matt Hendricks. The other 3 guys, and all 3 of them were All-Americans, are doing very, very, very well in the business world. And, they kind of give it a shot, but they kind of knew that they weren't going to be a Jordan Spieth and jump out there and make a whole lot of money, and they didn't want to spend 25 years of their life chasing something that might not ever be there. So they took a different route, and that's perfectly acceptable, and that's my hat's off to them for it, really. That happens, and that's really part of college golf. I would hate to see the percentage of kids that do not make it on tour that come to college with dreams of playing professional golf. I bet that number's staggering. But that aside, man, I don't have any problems with it. They're great teammates. They can still be tremendous contributors to our team, through their academics and through their leadership and through their play. Just as good as my 1 and 2 players can. So it takes all kinds, really.
Now that just sparked a question in my mind. Hopefully you can illustrate just the difference, in your answer. What are some of the major? Well, let's not even go major. What are the differences between playing on the pro tour or whatever pro tour there may be that they may go after, and playing in college? I mean, obviously there's going to be, the talent's going to be completely different, obviously. But what are some of the other differences that just make it such an adjustment period? I think I was told or found out that the average age on tour is 30. You're not 30 coming out of Clemson for the most part.
Right.
You shouldn't be playing golf. So what are some of the differences that some are obvious, but some are less obvious?
Well, you really just answered it, and it's maturity. Rarely do you see a Jordan Spieth. Rarely do you see a Tiger Woods have somebody that just comes out and makes an impact, or somebody that comes out and has tremendous success right out of the gates. I think the perfect golf age is between 30 and 35. I really think that's when you're at your best. That's when you've learned yourself. That's when you've learned your body. That's when you've learned your game, how to be an efficient practicer. All that kind of comes together through maturity. It's really hard to expect, kids from 18 to 22 to have that type of maturity. Most of the great players in college right now are just physical talents. I mean, they're really physical talents. And the ones that continue to progress and make it on tour are the ones that find a way to mature with their games. And I think one of the biggest mistakes a lot of kids make, and I talk about this a lot with our players, the hole doesn't know how old you are. The golf course has no idea how old you are. Hitting golf shots really does not matter how old you are. Don't think for 1 second that what you do is not good enough. And you also see that same transition between junior golf and college golf. They have doubts. Am I good enough to play at this level? And the next thing you know, they're changing their golf swing. Or, man, I need 15 more yards. And then they start tinkering, and the next thing you know, they can't break 75. That is a very common mistake that you see every year between college All-Americans and guys going to play professional golf. Just believe that what you have is good enough to let your game go ahead and mature. Settle into your golf swing. Really learn your golf swing. Learn why your ball does what it does. It's good enough. It got you there. Just go ahead and let it mature. And then there again, continue to work on that short game.
Wow. Great answer. Great answer. Now, heading back to the team, your team, how do you build a team dynamic? I mean, we're talking about golf here. Everybody has to do their own part. Even if there's 10 different guys, each guy has to do their part so that the team wins. It's not like football or basketball or baseball or any team sport in a sense where everybody's part may be slightly more prominent or more supported. No, everybody has to pull their weight, and it's a very individually focused sport. How do you build a team dynamic in college?
That's pretty tough. Right now I've got 10 players, and all 10 of them think they should be playing. And then when we leave a week from tomorrow for Puerto Rico in a very big tournament, 15 teams at the Rio Mar Norman course, right outside of San Juan, I'll only have 5 players. So we've got 5 guys at home, and there again, all 5 of them probably thinks they should be traveling. And you can create some animosity if you're not careful. But I guarantee you, and I preach this to them all the time, as a 10-man unit, we can't be beat. Meaning we've all got to be on the same page. Our communication skills and our communication levels always have to be very high. They have to know what I'm thinking. I have to know what they're thinking all the time. I don't want any bickering at all among teammates, from the ones that are traveling and the ones that aren't. It's not their fault that they are traveling. That's kind of tough because all these kids are very competitive. I mean, they're extremely competitive. But that aside, they do all have roles. They can all be leaders. Some of them are more vocal. Some of them lead by example. You really need both kinds. And then once you get it to click, and once you get everybody on the same page, and everybody playing for everybody, pulling for each other, that's really when it makes team golf fun, and we tend to have the most success.
Now, I can only imagine. I grew up playing only team sports. In fact, I don't think I've ever played an individual sport in a team dynamic. And, just take football, for example. I mean, you have the quarterback, and you have usually a running back or a wide receiver. On defense, you have your star player who's usually, a linebacker type or, a safety type, and everybody just follows their lead. You do not have, you don't have that option. You don't really have that option. Everybody has to be, as I like to say, they have to be Maximus Aurelius, but at the same time, they have to understand that, it's not always going to be them. traveling to the next arena to fight.
Right. Well, you're exactly right. Every now and then you'll get that special player, though. That'll be, kind of be the guy that comes in with the plan, knows what he wants to do. I was blessed to have one. He left after 3 years in 2009, and that was Kyle Stanley. And I have never had a kid work like that. And I kept telling his teammates, y'all need to do what he does. He's really giving you a blueprint plan on how to get to the PGA Tour. And they really took it to heart. And they watched exactly what he did. And it was so impressive. It was so hard-focused. Ben Martin, who was a really non-recruit, I mean, nobody recruited Ben Martin. And now Ben Martin's on tour, and he's made 6 out of the first 8 cuts. And he was a year ahead of Kyle. He took those words to heart, and he started doing everything Kyle did, which was really impressive to see. He saw how hard Kyle worked, how driven he was, and it really made Ben a better player. So every now and then you'll get that guy. You'll get somebody that's really willing to go ahead and just lay it out there every day, and tell them every day, guys, I am going to be on tour. This is what I'm doing. I'm not in for it, for short-term gratification. I'm in this thing for the long haul. And that's what I'm going to do. I mean, Kyle totally changed his body. He came in as 137 pounds, real skinny kid from Gig Harbor, Washington. And when he left after 3 years, he weighed 174 pounds with 2% body fat. So he did everything above and beyond. And Ben just jerked in on his shirt tails, and it's gotten Ben a very successful PGA career to date. So there are guys that can lead. I mean, there really are guys that can show teammates how to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I said it at the top. I mean, you have at least 15 former players on tour somewhere. What does that mean to you? I mean, just all things being equal. Can you even fathom that?
No, and I really don't think about it a whole lot. I know I will when I retire, which probably won't be too much longer from now on. I turn 55 Friday. So I'm still relatively young, and I'm, I really still enjoy the guys and still really enjoy the game. But yeah, after I turn in my keys, I think I'll really enjoy it. I do miss them, and I know that's something that's gotten harder and harder for me as I've gotten older. When I first started coaching, I had guys I couldn't wait to leave. But now it's more like when they leave after 4 or 5 years, it's like a child going off to college, and it's you spend so much time with them, and you go through a lot of ups and downs, especially in golf. But the ones that are successful and the ones that do make it, yeah, it's special. Watching Lucas Glover and Charles Warren. And then Ben and Kyle and DJ and Jonathan Bird. Jonathan's won 5 times out there, and his brother actually is my assistant coach, Jordan, and so we're always in close contact with Jonathan. But it's real fun, and then you try to keep motivating those guys out there on the .com. Stay after it. I tell them all the time, come see me. I just want you to continue to come see me. And they do. And that's really a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, that segues perfectly into my next question. And you kind of touched on it. How powerful are the relationships that you've formed with, whether it's your assistant coaches or your players, former players? I would imagine that it's probably the one of the few things that, whenever you do hang them up, it's just going to be so different. It's such a void. Because, in college, I think I remember correctly, I think they played this montage. I think it's college basketball or college football, where pretty much you're guaranteed every single season to have a brand new team in a sense. Like somebody's going or somebody's staying for the most part.
Right.
How impactful are the relationships that you forge with your players?
They are they're extremely strong. And I know one thing. One thing I am going to look forward to when I do retire is really get back some of those relationships with my guys on tour. Now I'll be able to go to a PGA Tour event. My wife and I can travel and watch these guys play, or I can go watch Clemson's golf team without, worrying about whether we've got 2 darn signatures on a scorecard or something like that. Just go be a spectator. I am really looking forward to that. I think that's going to be a lot of fun for me. But the relationships with these guys, it's really, I guess, why we do what we do. That's why we spend as much time with them as we do. Sure, we want to be competitive, and sure, we want to win, and all that's fun. But it's way more than that. It's always building relationships, and it's made my life real special to date.
Try not to make this a farewell interview. I've been many years in advance.
Oh, I got a lot more left in me. I'm not anywhere close, really.
Okay, just want to make sure. It's funny because there's this little voice in my head. It's like, I want to hear a story. Is there a moment, whether when you first started or within the past 10 or 15 years, where you're like, whether it's just players interaction or you're overcoming an obstacle or adversity with your guys, where you're just like, wow, that's why I coach this team? Is there a moment just at the top of your head, maybe not the best moment, but just one that immediately comes to mind?
I think the year that there's a lot of good ones. I've had a lot of learning moments that actually I've learned stuff from my players. One of my biggest learning moment, I think I've been coaching maybe 3 years, and all of a sudden I get this skinny kid from Massachusetts named Kevin Johnson, who he's that guy. I mean, he is the game changer. And then I get this other kid from about 15 miles out of Clemson called Chris Patton, who ended up winning a U.S. Am. So I've got a U.S. Public Links champ and a U.S. Am champ on my same team. And we're playing at the Chris Schenkel down in Statesboro, Georgia, and we've got Oklahoma State beat. And they've got an all-star team. They actually ended up winning the NCAAs that year, but we've got them beat. And on the 17th hole, Kevin hits the ball in the water and makes double. And we lose by a shot. And I am fuming. I mean, I am just this was our chance to go ahead and really put our golf team on the map. Mm-hmm. And this was actually in 1987. And Kevin looked me dead in the eyes and he goes, "Before you say a word, I just want you to know one thing. I didn't try to hit that ball in the water." And I'm telling you, that hit me like a ton of bricks. Because Here I was about to chastise this young'un, and he's out there doing the very best he can. And that was a game changer for me. Now, as far as stories go about players, we've had a lot of great moments. I think one of the biggest reasons I knew, or when I knew we were going to win the NCAA championships, was actually at the ACC championship about a month before the NCAA finals. We had been ranked number 1 all year, and from the opening kickoff, Labor Day in September, all through the fall, all through the spring, we had not won a tournament in the spring. Second. And we get to the ACC championship, and Wake Forest has got us beat. And I mean, they've got Bill Haas, and they've literally beat our fannies, and we're 7 shots down with 3 holes to play. And all of a sudden we make a couple birdies on 16, we make a couple birdies on 17, and all 4 counters birdied 18. And we ended up winning by a shot. And that was, to me, the most telling tale of the character of those guys and why we go through what we go through and why we work as hard as we work, that there was not one ounce of give up in those guys, and they never once believed that they were not going to win. And that's stuff that we try to teach our players on a daily basis, and that was probably the most gratifying moment, other than winning the national championship. But we went on 2 weeks later and dominated the East Regionals and won by about 14 shots, and then went to Stillwater, Oklahoma, and beat Oklahoma State on their home golf course by 3. But I think we won that championship at the ACC Championships a month earlier.
Yeah, I think, and I'm trying not to, overdo it and make parallels, but I remember I played football at WVU, and I remember 2005 season. I forgot who. Yeah, we played Syracuse to open up our conference play, and I mean, it was one of the ugliest games that we played that year. But I just remember one play where we stopped them on defense, and then Pat White became Pat White, and Steve Slayton became Steve Slayton. And, that moment, I'm originally from Phoenix, Arizona, so I'm not from the Morgantown, West Virginia, Pittsburgh area at all. But from that moment on, I was like, I don't care who they put in front of us. I think we're ready to take on the world, And that moment that you're describing is like, I mean, yeah, you've been good, but when that moment happens and you're up against a foe, I mean, Wake Forest in golf is like, I mean, that's, I mean, for you, that's almost like the dark side, let's be honest.
Oh, that's exactly right.
So, I mean, to clinch the ACC championship and to be able to just, I mean, everybody knows that you're good, but it's always a matter of how good. And in that moment, I get tingles because I felt it before, where you just knew. It's like, okay, let's do it. Let's just go get it because it's there.
That's right. Well, it's that makes coaching fun, and it really does. And it's really what you strive to try to get your team to do every year, is to be their very best in April, May, and June. All the other stuff we do through the regular season, I mean, it's important, and obviously rankings mean stuff. But if we can learn lessons throughout the year and get ready to be our best in our postseason, then that's what really makes memories for our players and for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, my last question. This has been a great conversation. My last question is more so it's a learning question. You mentioned Kevin Johnson saying that, hey, I didn't mean to hit the ball, which is so ironic in the sense like it just breaks you down back into a human, I guess. I think it would break me back down into a human. What is one thing that in your career, whether as a player, as a coach now, where, you find yourself reminding your players about, and we've talked about mechanics, trusting yourself, and not over chastising them. Is there another thing where you just find yourself sounding like a broken record to your players? Hey, do this, do this, do this.
Yeah, I don't think there's one thing specifically that I try to get them to do, other than, I don't want you to sell yourself short. We deal too much right now, or I'm dealing too much over the last probably 3 or 4 years with my players, with kind of self-image issues, or in its confidence.
Mm-hmm.
I think they feel a lot of heat from the past successes of a lot of our past teams, and I've really struggled with guys being confident in feeling that they belong and feeling that we can win. So daily, I mean, it is virtually daily. You know, I am telling our players, I don't want you to sell yourself short. You know, I want you to put in the time. I want you to feel like you believe. I want you to feel like you deserve it. And once you feel like you deserve it, there's nothing you can't accomplish. But you've got to feel like you deserve it. It's yours. That's kind of a coaching deal that I guess it's you know. Of course, when I tell them that, a lot of times they look at me like I'm crazy. You know, and I understand that. You know, I'm getting further and further removed from generation to generation. But I do still believe that the life lessons and the winning lessons and confidence lessons are still the same. But if I could have our current team or our current players learn something, you know, that's what I want them to learn. You know, don't sell yourself short. You know, let's give this thing all we've got and let's go out with a bang.
Yeah, and that leads me to a sub-question. Well, what's the difference between confidence and swagger? I mean, I'm sure you've had guys who just over-exude confidence and ability where you probably have to tone them down. What's the difference in golf terms between confidence and swagger, or is there a difference?
I don't think there is. Now, I think you can have. I think there's arrogance and maybe more of a cockiness.
Mm-hmm.
But there again, if a cockiness is controlled, it's okay. But man, you want. I tell the guys all the time. Hell, whenever we walk out of the van, when we pull up at a tournament and walk out of the van, I want you to act like and feel like nobody here can beat you. And I want that to be your attitude. Now, whether or not they ever achieve that, I don't know. But that's something I like to see. I know when our teams were winning, you know, when Jonathan Byrd and DJ Trahan and Lucas Glover and John Engler, when they were all on, I guarantee you, when we pulled up in the parking lot, not only did we know we were going to win, everybody else in the field knew we were going to win too, and you could just feel it.
Mm.
But that's something that I really wish, you know, I'd like to have that swagger back. You know, I'd like to have that confidence back. And really, it doesn't take, you know, you get one or two players to believe in it and start winning tournaments, and the rest of the team will jump on board. So, you know, I'm all for that. I think you can. I don't think you can have enough of that.
Yeah, and I lean the same way. I think in our society, in our culture, we have this issue with let's just call it political correctness. You know, being a good sportsman. Well, I'm not saying to be a jerk. I'm not saying that you disrespect your opponents or the field, for that matter. But the best way to respect your opponents is to give them every ounce of what you have. That's Absolutely. The only way that they will see and feel that you respect them, because you don't want to give them your worst, because I mean that's just not a good proposition. But I understand. I believe it's the exact same ethos. I mean, just bring it. Not only bring. I mean, there's a line there somewhere, and it's case by case, player by player. You know, you don't want to be doing things that are audacious and outrageous and distract from the game. But man, if you're gonna play, own it.
I totally agree. It sounds like I need to get you in to talk to my team.
Let me know the time and the place. Yeah, I mean, I am all about, you know, and you know, when you say selling yourself short, I mean that's so critical. It's so critical. I mean, you don't achieve anything by, you know, lucking into it long term. I mean, you can luck into a situation that spawns off into something. But, man, if you're going to do something as vital and as just, you know, psychological as golf, man, that has to be yours, and you deserve it. You work for it, and you punish yourself for it. So, I can see that needing to be reinforced from, I guess, generation to generation.
Well, unfortunately, a lot of today's kids, you know, they don't keep scoring Little League anymore. You know, everybody gets a trophy, and I'm okay for building up self-esteem, but let's make self-esteem worth something. You know, let's give it some substance. You know, I think that's kind of hurt our kids a little bit, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like I can talk to you for another 3 or 4 more hours. I mean, I know that you're stuck in the house with the snow, but man, this has been a great conversation. Great conversation.
Well, it's been my pleasure, David. I appreciate you asking me. I'd be willing to do it any time.
Well, I will hold you to that, because there's nothing better than just talking life or the game and just making it. I mean, just like we're talking about self-esteem, making it count. You know, being honest. You know, talking about learning moments, but also talking about moments where, I mean, you slay the dragon. Isn't that what life is about? You know?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I appreciate you coming on and taking time out to do this interview.
You got it, man. It's my pleasure. Anytime.
All right. And I just want to thank everybody else for being a part of it.